But we'll start with that day two prospect portion of this. So, Todd, you've just done this. It'll be up on ESPN+. We're going to give it some love here. Get to know some names, not in the top 10, but instead some names we'll be seeing on Friday. Let's start with you, Todd. Who's popping to you?
Quay Walker, the linebacker from Georgia, and I liked him on tape. I really did, and gave him a second-round grade. And this time of year, now that the book is printed today, the NFL draft book, 423 evaluations, now it's time to talk to guys in the league as they're starting to set their boards and have their final meetings. And I keep hearing this guy's name come up, Quay Walker. We all talk about Nakobe Dean. I like Dean more than Walker. But when I talk to teams, some teams say the potential for Walker to be a better pro is there. He's longer. He's got these 6'3.5", 241 pounds, 32 and 5/8 inch arms, and he plays fast. He doesn't play as fast as Nakobe Dean, and Dean didn't run a 40-yard dash, but he ran a 4.52, Quay Walker did. So this is a player that's ascending, not only in terms of his playing ability and how teams think he's going to be as a rookie and moving forward, but he's ascending on teams' boards. And I think that's interesting to hear. I had several teams, Kiper, and I'm interested to hear what you say. Several teams say, it's kind of here or there. We're really struggling in our meetings to figure out whether we like Dean or Walker as our first linebacker in this class, or basically going between the two with Devin Lloyd from Utah in the mix as well.
I'm struggling, Todd, with the Georgia defensive players. They're hard to evaluate. They're hard to project to the NFL. I don't know what I'm going to do a segment off script later on the toughest guys to evaluate, which means you throw your arms up and say, I just don't know. Now, I just don't know for sure. A lot of them are Georgia players, Todd. I want to just get your feeling. Are you confident in a Trayvon Walker? Doesn't use his hands yet effectively. Can he be coached up? His quickness inside shows he's more disruptive inside for me. Do you maximize his potential by finding a spot? Do you move him around like they did at Georgia? Can Trayvon Walker maximize that ability? You see the run blitzes on Quay Walker. You see the talent. Can you fit him into a spot? I'm going to talk about Channing Tindall, who's is a little bit underrated. Devontae Wyatt, I think, may be a more disruptive defensive tackle than Jordan Davis, who everybody loves now. But is the stamina going to improve? Is he going to be on the field enough? Is he going to be disruptive enough against the pass, getting after the quarterback? Do you get him with a team who has a lot of edge guys like the Rams did, which made Ashawn Robinson really good? I think it's going to be really fun to see 2-3 years from now where all these Georgia defensive players are in terms of just how good they are once they're in the National Football League.
Yeah, I think Davis versus Wyatt is fascinating. And it really depends on the team and kind of what they're looking for. But every team I've talked to says, yeah, the talent's there with Jordan Davis. I mean, 341 pounds, running a 4.78 in the 40-yard dash, 10-foot 3-inch broad, which is just it's mind-blowing. It defies physics what he did. But can he stay at 341 pounds? Or is he going to be at 365 and you're going to spend the whole year putting your thumb on him trying to keep his weight in check? And that's the issue, because if he's 360 plus, he's a 20 to 25 snap guy. And I think that I've seen it on tape. I know you've seen that on tape, Mel, and everyone in the league seems to agree. But if you keep him around 335, 340, and he gets committed to it, he can be a 40 snap guy, and he can be more impactful, not just versus the run, but in the passing game. So, and Wyatt on tape is the more consistently disruptive player. 50, 60 snaps per game out there. Pass rush, not great stats in terms of sacks, but more disruptive as a pass rusher, more disruptive versus the run, and on the field more. But then there's some of the character issues that all the teams I've talked to are concerned with and could drop him to the late first or early second round range. So that debate, and then Quay Walker versus Nakobe Dean is realistic. It's really happening in NFL teams' draft rooms right now, and it'll be interesting to see how it plays out in the draft, and more importantly, how it affects their careers and what winds up being the case with all four of those players.
It raises some interesting questions, not only about the individuals, but how you scout a defense that has so many talented players on it, how that will impact all of them across the board. Mel, who do you have on your list next up?
Well, I think when you look at players in terms of guys that are really looking good right now and the guys that are skyrocketing up boards, I think you go to the pass rushers and you go to the guys like Jermaine Johnson, the second out of Florida State, who, Todd, every time you talk to people in the league, they say top 10 guaranteed. The production on the field matched the workout numbers. Granted, it was for one season. That's the thing. You get the one-year guys as opposed to the guys who've done it for 2 or 3 years. The transfer comes in, sets the world on fire, but it's one great year. But I do think Jermaine Johnson, the second, Todd, for me, is a guy that has been rocketing up to the point where now you almost say if he gets out of the top 10, it would be a shocker.
Yeah, and I'll give you another guy, Mel, that's really interesting. Travis Jones from Connecticut. And I like to talk about these guys in terms of second-round players where you're getting a lot of different information from teams. Coming out of Connecticut, his tape, the best word I can use was frustrating. Because you see the talent and you see flashes, but it was up and down in terms of the production, in terms of just the overall play. Is he going to develop with more coaching and more time spent on his craft into the player that his measurables and the flashes indicate that he can be? You're talking about 6'4.5", 325 pounds, 34.25-inch arms, and he ran a 4.92. I mean, this guy is quick. He's athletic, he's long, he's everything you look for in a defensive tackle. I've had some teams say, hey, he could go late first. I've had some other teams say, well, kind of mid-second, late second, just because the tape was so frustrating. But I think Travis Jones, when it's all said and done, is going to be somewhere in the top 40 to 45 picks in this year's class. And he's a name to know. We talk so much about the Georgia guys. We just talked about him again, Jordan Davis and Devontae Wyatt. But I think after those two, it's going to be Travis Jones being the next interior defensive lineman that comes off the board.
When you talk about things we always talk about, wide receivers are on everybody's mind. Mel, what are your thoughts on Sky Moore, the wide receiver out of Western Michigan?
Love the kid. I've mentioned his name a lot. I love the fact you go back to high school and you get a quarterback and a defensive back and a point guard on the hardwood in basketball. Then you go there and you produce and you put the kind of numbers up he did this past year, which were phenomenal. Same school Greg Jennings came out of, the career Greg Jennings had in the NFL. You think about Sky Moore in terms of the stiff arm, the breaking tackles, a little Steve Smith you see in Sky Moore at Western Michigan. Incredibly explosive, consistent catching the football. Yards after catch, he was dynamic. Love everything about this kid. And you say, okay, where's he going to go? Second round. When we look back 3, 4 years, 10 years from now, say, why was Sky Moore a second-round pick, not a first-round pick? Mid-American Conference, yeah, but hey, how about Pitt? Pitt Panthers, he had 11 catches, okay? So, again, nobody slowed this guy down. After the catch, like I said, he's phenomenal. I love the aggressiveness, the toughness, that Steve Smith quality that he brings. Sky Moore, to me, phenomenal player. And then I'll go to a couple guys. Tyler Smith out of Tulsa. He's an offensive tackle. Todd, you know all about Tyler Smith. And by the way, happy birthday, Tyler. Just turned 21 years of age yesterday. Tyler Smith, still raw. Hand placement's an issue. Obviously, pass protection's an issue. A lot of these issues are correctable by a quality offensive line coach. So I think Tyler Smith from Tulsa, when you look at where he's going to go, I thought he could go late first, maybe second round. You get a kid who I think in a few years, if he's coached properly, could be a really good tackle. Guard as well, played both guard and tackle in high school. His nastiness, his aggressiveness, his toughness is Trevor Penning-like. These two guys were fun to watch, entertaining to watch, because they attack. Fundamentally, technically, he needs to improve, and that's coaching. And then we get to Todd, a guy that you were giving me a lot of grief about, and Fitz, he was giving me this all year about I overrated this guy. It was a Kiper stunt. It's what Kiper does every year to me, and he's going to trend him back. He's going to move him back, and then he's going to, by the time we get to April, Arnold Ebikete, Todd, still remains to me one of the guys I like. I think he's deserving of being in a lot of these first-round mocks. He's deserving of being a guy that you think is one of the best 35 players in this draft. 9.5 sacks off the edge, 18 tackles for loss, 2 forced fumbles. James Franklin loved the fact that he came in from Temple, and he showed like up in here for 3 years. He came in humble, ready to work. He got that locker room right away, went on that practice field and worked hard. Arnold Ebikete has the mind, the makeup, the mindset, the physical and athletic ability is there. The production this year and at Temple was pretty good. It was great at Penn State this year. I think when you look at an outside backer getting off the edge who provides some versatility, okay, Arnold Ebikete, to me, is the guy, if he gets into the second round, Todd, I think he's a heck of a pick. It could be a late one, but I still really like what Arnold Ebikete will bring to a defense in terms of getting after the quarterback.
No player in the history of the First Draft podcast has been talked about more than Arnold Ebikete as the number 33 player in this draft class. I said all along, you bumped him up to 17. Kiper stunt. You're going to back him off. Now you're saying top 40, top 35. I got it. You're doing exactly what I predicted, and I appreciate you for that, Mel. I'll give you another nugget, by the way. You talked about that big game Sky Moore had against Pittsburgh. He didn't get an offer from Pittsburgh. His girlfriend's a cheerleader on the Pittsburgh team. Of course he was going to show out in that game. I love Sky Moore as well, and he's definitely moving up. I don't think he goes late first, but he's going to go somewhere in the first 10, 12 picks of the second round. Now, on to a final guy for me in terms of second round. I just finished the mock 4.0, which is 2 rounds. And I had this guy coming off the board probably a little bit earlier than you would think. I had him going 47 to the Commanders. And it's Roger McCreary, the cornerback from Auburn. And he's tough. He's a conundrum of a scouting evaluation because he's got average size. He's got the shortest arms of any defensive back that was at the Combine this year, 28 and 7/8 inches. And the speed was just average, 4.5. So what do you say at corner? Probably the 2 most important numbers for any position are arm length combined with speed at the cornerback position. He shows up with a below average to poor grade in that area. But this dude can cover. He's a press man corner. He's going up against Alabama. Had an awesome night against the Crimson Tide. John Mechie, he really battled Mechie a lot in that game. Williams as well on the opposite side at times. But to me, McCreary is one of the most seasoned veteran corners and so instinctive and quick in the short area. I know the short arms and I know the lack of elite speed, but McCreary is one of those guys I think in that early mid-second round range with so many teams needing a corner could wind up coming off the board despite all the other measurable issues.
It's interesting as you guys break down all of these prospects. It speaks to the depth at certain positions in this year's draft because you've got guys on the defensive line, you've got wide receivers. We're talking about guys that are particularly in deep positions that can still make an impact. Mel, who else is on your mind that you want to throw out there that we should keep an eye on?
Couple of versatile linebackers. I think you look at Channing Tindall at Georgia, the underrated guy on that Georgia Bulldog defense. I've mentioned his name before. Troy Anderson, Todd has talked about at Montana State. You got to like the kid. I talk about versatility. He's ultimate in terms of that. And then Marcus Jones, a cornerback, when we get past the Elite 3, okay, that would be right now Sauce Gardner, Derek Stingley Jr., LSU, and then McDuffie from Washington. There's a lot of mixed opinion. And then you get maybe that third tier and you say, oh, Marcus Jones, he's just a great returnman. He's a good cover guy. I tell you, you think about a guy 5'8", but a kid who can really get in your face. He's aggressive. He's quick. He's got the hands, the concentration you talk about in coverage. He comes down with interceptions. I always say a dropped interception is a turnover against you. He had, 9 career interceptions. He's interception passes at Troy. He's doing it at Houston with 5 this past year. He's got pick sixes. He's got 6 kick return touchdowns, 3 punt return touchdowns in his career, both at Troy and Houston combined. Marcus Jones, a lot to like about this kid. I think maybe...
I love that pick right there.
I'll ask you, Todd, does he get into your third round, or did he go in round 2 of your mock? I mean, at least let that information be known, because I want to know, was he a 2 or was he a 3 in your mock draft?
He was the next corner up. He didn't make it in the first 2 rounds. I think he's a lock to go in round 3. Yes, he's undersized. Talk to the people at Houston. I don't know if you've talked to anyone in the staff at Houston, Mel. Jones is considered like the energy of the whole program. He has been for the last couple of years. Just the way he practices, everything he does. They say like he runs in and out of the locker room. He runs the class. He's just always on the move, and that's infectious. The return game, he's special. That Memphis game was the first tape I studied. We just saw the interceptions. He had 2 picks in that game. The one at the end was kind of a Hail Mary where he was just in the right position. But the one catch with his, one arm, hand up, palms it in, and gets the interception, gets a bigger receiver, contested catch. Really impressive. He's going to have some busts, and he's going to have a little bit of a roller coaster early on because he's still, I think, learning the cornerback position with his footwork and technique. But I don't know that there are many guys in this class that have a better combination of quickness and speed than Jones does.
Yeah, especially with the need for corner depth across the NFL. It just feels like this is the sort of thing, if he falls to the top of the third, look out for trades, people trying to get up and get their flavor of ice cream. Anybody else on your minds? Are we good? I got to pay Fields exorbitant salary for this show. But before we get there, anybody else you want to throw out? Last chance, gentlemen.